Ryan sat alone near the edge of an old trade station on a quiet alien moon. The place had been empty for years, and the silence around him felt heavy, like the air did not want to move. He opened his small metal lunchbox and took out some bread and cooked meat. It was a simple meal, but after a long day of travel, it felt special. He looked around one more time. No one was here. At least that is what he thought, but something in the air felt strange. Like someone was watching him. Ryan did not see anything at first. The broken metal walls, old crates, and dusty ground all looked normal. But the feeling did not go away. He tried to ignore it and took a bite of his food. That was when he heard the soft sound of movement behind him. Quick, light steps. Like a small creature or a child. Before he could turn fully, a tiny hand grabbed the food from his open lunchbox. Ryan jumped and looked down in shock. A small alien girl, thin like she had not eaten for days, stood there. Her skin was pale blue, her clothes were torn, and her eyes were big and filled with fear. For a moment, she froze too, staring at him like she expected him to shout or hit her, but Ryan did neither. The girl held the food tightly and then suddenly ran. She was fast, much faster than he expected. Her small legs carried her into a dark hallway of the old station. Ryan stood there for a second, confused. She did not look like a thief. Her face showed something very different. Desperation. Ryan took a breath and started following her. He was not angry. His food was not worth much. But something about the little girl's eyes stayed with him. She looked scared, but not scared of him. Scared of something else. The hallway she entered was long and dark, filled with broken pipes and fallen wires. Dust rose from the ground with every step. Ryan walked quietly, trying to hear her movements. He soon noticed that she was not running in a straight line. Her footsteps were shaky, weak. Like she was tired or maybe hurt. The deeper Ryan went, the colder it became. A strange smell filled the air. Something like sickness or old blood. It made his heart beat faster. He wondered why a small child would hide in a place like this. Where were her parents? Her family? After some time, he saw a faint light at the end of the hallway. It came from a small room that looked half destroyed. The door was barely hanging on its hinges. Ryan stepped closer and heard tiny sobs. And then a weak cough. That cough made him stop. It was not the sound of a healthy person. It was weak, painful, almost like someone was struggling to breathe. He stepped inside slowly, not wanting to scare anyone. There, in the corner of the room, he saw the little alien girl again. She was kneeling on the ground beside a figure lying on a thin blanket. The girl held the stolen food close to her chest, shaking. Her eyes were full of fear and worry. Ryan looked closer at the figure on the ground. It was an older alien woman, maybe the girl's mother. Her skin was dull, her breathing slow and heavy. It looked like she had not eaten for days. Her body was thin, and she seemed to be in great pain. The girl tried to wake the woman gently, whispering something in her alien language. Ryan couldn't understand the words, but he understood the emotion. She was begging her mother to eat, to stay alive. The mother opened her eyes slightly, saw Ryan, and tried to sit up. But she couldn't. She coughed again, a dry, painful sound. She whispered, "Stay quiet. They can hear us." Her voice was weak, barely above a breath. Ryan felt a wave of confusion and worry. Who could hear them? Who were they? He didn't move. He didn't speak. He just listened. The little girl finally looked at Ryan again. This time her eyes were not full of fear of him. They were full of pleading. She held the food out toward her mother and gently tried to feed her. Ryan watched silently as the mother tried to eat but failed. She was too weak. Something inside Ryan changed at that moment. He realized something very simple and very painful. This little child stole his food not because she wanted it, but because she needed to save her mother. She had no one. No help, no home. Just fear and hunger. And maybe more danger than Ryan understood. He took one small step forward. The mother watched him carefully, a tired warning in her eyes. But the girl, she looked at him with hope. Ryan understood then that he was not dealing with thieves or criminals. He was dealing with survivors. And something out there, something dangerous, was still hunting them. Ryan stood inside the dark, broken room, trying to understand the scene in front of him. The little alien girl held the stolen food like it was the most precious thing in the world. She kept trying to feed her mother, but the older woman's hands trembled too much, and her lips barely moved. The mother's eyes opened for a moment. They were tired, but still sharp enough to show fear. Ryan slowly crouched down to appear less threatening. "It's okay," he said softly, even though he knew they might not understand his words. But the tone mattered. The girl flinched at his voice at first, but then she studied him, her eyes searching for danger. She seemed to sense he meant no harm. The mother gave a weak whisper. Ryan could not understand the language, but it was clear she was telling her daughter something like, "Stay back, or be careful." Her voice cracked with pain. The child shook her head hard and pressed the food closer to her mother's mouth. Her little hands shook from fear and hunger. She wanted her mother to live, no matter what. Ryan watched the scene with a heavy heart. He had seen tough moments during his travels, but this felt different. This was raw survival. He looked around the ruined room. There were torn blankets, empty water bottles, and a few broken pieces of tech on the ground. They had been hiding here for days, maybe weeks. No medicine, no food, no help, no safety. The cold wind slipped through a broken window, and the mother shivered. The girl quickly wrapped her small arms around her mother as if she could warm her by herself. The gesture hit Ryan deeply. He realized he had to help them. They were not safe here, but before he could speak, the mother forced her weak body to rise slightly. She lifted her hand, pointing toward the entrance. Her eyes widened in warning. Ryan stopped breathing for a moment. He listened. At first, he heard nothing. But then, very faint, he caught the sound of distant footsteps. Heavy ones. Several of them. Not like the light steps of the little girl. Someone big. Someone dangerous. The mother whispered again, her voice full of fear. She was trying to warn him. Ryan could not understand her words, but the message was clear. They are coming. The little girl grabbed her mother's arm tightly, her whole body shaking. She turned to Ryan and pointed at the dark hallway. Her eyes begged him to be silent. Ryan quickly moved to the side of the room, pressing his back against a broken wall. He waited, listening. The footsteps moved closer, then stopped, then moved again as if searching. Whoever they were nearby. The mother held her breath, trying not to cough. But her sickness was too strong. A weak cough escaped her, echoing softly through the ruined doorway. The footsteps outside suddenly stopped. Ryan felt his heart jump. They had heard her. The little girl covered her mother's mouth with both hands, trying to muffle the sound. Tears ran down her cheeks, not from hunger this time, but from fear. Ryan peeked toward the hallway. Shadows moved slowly against the wall. Someone was walking past, scanning the rooms. Their boots made slow, careful noises. These were not friendly explorers. These were trackers, raiders, hunters searching for survivors. The girl pressed herself against her mother, trembling. The mother's weak hand touched her daughter's head gently, as if saying, "Stay quiet. Stay alive." Ryan's mind raced. He had to think fast. If the raiders entered this room, they would find everyone. The mother was too weak to run. The girl was too small. And Ryan only had a small tool knife and no armor. Silence filled the room again. Ryan held his breath, waiting. After a long moment, the footsteps moved away. The raiders continued down the hall, searching another part of the ruins. The girl slowly removed her hands from her mother's mouth. The mother let out a shaky breath and closed her eyes, exhausted. The danger had passed for now. Ryan crawled closer, keeping his voice low. "You're hiding from them," he whispered. The girl nodded quickly, pointing at the hall with fear. Her eyes filled with pain as she looked down at her mother. Ryan understood something important. The girl wasn't just scared of the raiders. She was scared they would take her mother. He placed a gentle hand on the floor between them, showing he meant no harm. "I will help," he said softly. The girl stared at him. Her tears slowed. Her breathing softened. Slowly, she reached out and touched Ryan's hand with her small, cold fingers. She trusted him, just a little. Ryan felt a quiet promise forming inside him. He was not leaving this child and her sick mother alone. Not while danger walked the halls outside, and he didn't know it yet. But the real danger had only just begun. Ryan sat beside the trembling girl and her sick mother, trying to understand how deeply their fear ran. The raiders' footsteps had faded away, but their presence still pressed on the air like a shadow that refused to leave. The room felt colder, darker, as if danger was still standing just outside the door. The little girl wiped her tears with the back of her hand. Her eyes were red, but she forced herself to sit up straight, pretending to be brave. Ryan could see that she had learned to hide her fear. She must have done it many times. He spoke softly, pointing at himself. "Ryan." Then he pointed at her, hoping she would understand. The girl hesitated. She touched her chest lightly and whispered her name in a soft, trembling voice. Ryan could not repeat it perfectly, so she said it again, slower this time. It sounded like Leary. Ryan smiled gently, trying not to scare her. "Leary," he said. Her small head nodded that. Then Leary pointed to her mother and whispered another name, Mira. Mira opened her eyes for a moment, just enough to see Ryan. Her gaze was filled with pain, but also gratitude. She did not have the strength to speak. Ryan leaned closer, trying to study Mira's condition without touching her. Her breathing was shallow. Her skin was much too pale. Her body trembled with fever. She needed medical care, clean water, and rest. But more than that, she needed a safe place. "Food," Leary whispered suddenly. She held the stolen meal with both hands, hugging it tightly. Ryan nodded. He took out the rest of the food he had saved, placing it gently near Mira. "It's okay," he said. "Eat." Leary slowly broke the bread into tiny pieces and pressed them near her mother's lips. Mira tried to eat, but the pain in her body made it too difficult. Leary bit her lip hard, her small hands shaking with frustration. Ryan reached into his bag and pulled out a small water flask. Leary watched him carefully at first, then took it with shaking fingers. She helped her mother sip a little. Mira swallowed with difficulty, but it was something. A small victory. As Mira rested again, Ryan turned to Leary. He asked softly, "Why are you here? Why hiding?" Leary looked at him, her eyes wide, frightened. She lifted her hand and pointed outside the room. She drew a circle in the air, then made a motion like something exploding. Ryan understood their village had been attacked. She lifted 2 fingers. Her and her mother. Then closed her fist, showing that everyone else was gone or taken. Ryan felt a cold sting in his chest. The raiders were not just thieves, they were hunters. They destroyed villages, captured the weak, and took whatever they wanted. Leary and Mira had escaped, but only barely. Now they were alone, starving, wounded, and hiding in a place that even animals avoided. Ryan looked toward the hallway again, as if expecting the shadows to move. "Why here?" he asked softly. Leary pointed at the ceiling. The metal plates above were rusted and full of holes. This part of the station was unstable, dangerous, and probably ignored by raiders because they thought it was useless. Hiding here made sense. But it wasn't safe. Ryan sat back and thought. If raiders found them again, neither Leary nor Mira would survive. And if the mother's sickness got worse, she would not last another day. He had to get them out. But the station was crawling with raiders. He had seen their tracks outside. Leaving now without a plan could get them caught instantly. He needed time. He needed to think. Leary suddenly tugged his sleeve. Her small hand pointed to the door, then down the hall. "They come back," she whispered in broken English. Ryan blinked. She understood. Some human words. "How long?" he asked. Leary lifted her hand, showing 4 fingers. Then she pointed to the ceiling where a small crack of moonlight shone through. Ryan realized she meant they returned when the moon reached a certain position, a time they had learned from fear. 4 marks of light movement. 4 steps of the moon's cycle. About 1 hour. That meant the raiders would return soon. Ryan's jaw tightened. Leary crawled closer to her mother, curling up beside her like a frightened animal. Mira weakly stroked her daughter's head, apologizing even though she could barely speak. Ryan watched them and felt something heavy inside him. These two didn't need a hero. They needed someone human. Someone who couldn't walk away. He stood up slowly and checked his small bag. He had 1 tool knife, a thin flashlight, a small energy cell, and a few emergency packs. Not much, but he would use whatever he had. He looked at Leary and held out his hand. "Let me help," he whispered. Leary stared at his hand for a long moment. She didn't trust easily. She had been taught by fear. But then she placed her tiny hand in his. A silent promise was made. Ryan would get them out alive. But the hour was ticking fast. And something worse than raiders was waiting in the shadows. Ryan checked the hallway again, making sure no raider shadows moved across the broken walls. The moonlight leaking through the cracked ceiling told him time was running out. If the raiders returned on their usual cycle, Leary, Mira, and even he would be trapped inside a dead station with no escape. He turned back to Leary. The little girl held her mother's weak hand tightly, as if letting go would cause Mira to disappear. Ryan knelt beside them and spoke in a low voice. "We must leave," he said. He pointed toward the exit, then at the moon. Soon, Leary's eyes widened with fear. She shook her head quickly. "No, no, bad men," she whispered. She pressed herself closer to Myra as if trying to protect her with her tiny body. Ryan understood her fear. Leaving the room was dangerous, but staying here was worse. He scanned the storage crates and metal debris around the room, looking for anything useful. Most of it was broken old tools, rusted metal plates, torn fabric. But he found a thin thermal blanket buried under a shattered beam. He carefully pulled it free and wrapped it around Mira to keep her warm. Mira moved weakly, her eyelids trembling as she tried to speak. Her voice was dry and thin like cracked glass. "Safe. Nowhere. Raiders. Everywhere," she whispered. Ryan slowly shook his head. "There is a place," he said softly, hoping she would feel even a tiny bit of hope. "A human outpost. Not far." Leary looked up at him, confused and uncertain. Ryan drew a small shape in the dusty floor, a simple structure. Then he drew 2 stick figures and a path leading to the building. "Home," he said. "Safe." Leary studied the drawing. She understood enough to know what he meant. But then she pointed at her mother and shook her head again. Mira could barely move. Walking would be impossible. Ryan thought hard. He could carry Mira, but not for long, not through dangerous ruins full of raiders. He needed a plan that made sense, not a brave plan that got everyone killed. He stepped to the doorway and listened again. The halls were silent, but silence here meant nothing. Raiders moved quietly when they searched. He took a deep breath and returned to Leary. "Listen," he whispered. "I will make a way." She blinked at him, unsure what he meant. Ryan pulled the small energy cell from his bag. It was half dead, but it could still power something for a short time. He found an old metal crate lid, bent in the middle, and tested its weight. If he could repair it even a little, he could make a sliding board. A simple carrier for Mira. It wouldn't be comfortable. But it could work. He worked fast, using the tool knife to shave off sharp edges. He tied broken fabric and wire from the walls to create handles. Leary watched him silently, sometimes moving closer to check what he was doing. When he slid the board across the floor, it made only a soft scraping sound. Good. Quiet was everything. He returned to Mira and spoke gently. "I am going to move you," he said, hoping his calm voice would reassure her. Mira tried to respond, but only a dry breath came out. Her eyes showed fear of pain, fear of raiders, fear for her daughter. But Ryan placed a steady hand on her shoulder. "Trust me," he whispered. Leary helped him lift Mira carefully. Mira winced in pain, but she didn't cry out. Leary held her mother's hand the whole time, whispering soft words in her language, words of comfort, promises that she wouldn't leave her. When Mira was secured on the sliding board, Ryan covered her with the blanket. Leary sat beside her, gripping the edge of the board like she would protect her mother with her small body. If anything happened, Ryan wiped sweat from his forehead. The room was cold, but the pressure of danger made his heart beat fast. He leaned close to Leary. "We go slow," he whispered. "Quiet, very quiet." She nodded. Ryan moved to the door, peeked out, and waited. The hallway was dark but empty. He stepped forward, pulling the sliding board with Mira gently behind him. The quiet sound echoed slightly, but not enough to alert anyone far away. Leary followed closely, her small feet making almost no noise. Step by step, Ryan led them through the maze of ruins. Broken lights flickered on the walls, casting strange shadows around them. Every shadow made Leary tense up. Every distant drip of water made Ryan stop and listen. He guided them toward a safer side of the station, one that he hoped raiders didn't patrol as often. But halfway down the hall, Mira coughed just once. Just softly. But the sound echoed. Ryan froze. Leary froze. The air froze. Then faint footsteps began in the distance. Slow, heavy, coming closer. Leary grabbed Ryan's sleeve tightly. "They come," she whispered. Ryan swallowed hard. The raiders were returning sooner than expected. And now they knew someone was here. The footsteps grew louder with every second. Ryan felt the sound in his chest like a drum warning of danger. Leary clung to his arm, her tiny fingers shaking. Mira lay silently on the sliding board, her weak breaths rising and falling in painful waves. Ryan whispered, "Stay behind me," though he knew Leary already understood the danger without words. He pulled Mira's board gently into a corner, beside a fallen metal beam. The shadows there were thicker, almost swallowing them from view. It wasn't perfect, but it was the best hiding place in the moment. The footsteps slowed. Ryan held his breath. A deep voice echoed down the hallway, speaking in a rough alien language. Ryan didn't know the words, but he understood the tone. Suspicion. Alertness. Hunting. Another voice answered, sharp and impatient. The raiders were arguing quietly, but their boots kept moving closer. Ryan felt the air tighten around them. Leary pressed her forehead against her mother's arm. Mira, even in her weak state, lifted her hand to touch her daughter's hair, trying to comfort her without making a sound. The second set of footsteps stopped. Right outside the hallway. "Turn," Ryan's heart pounded. He slowly reached into his bag and gripped the handle of his tool knife. It wasn't a real weapon, not against men built for raiding and violence, but it was all he had. If they found Leary and Mira, he would have to fight and likely lose, but he would not let the raiders take them. A shadow moved on the wall, then another. Ryan pressed himself against the cold metal, shielding the two behind him. He kept low, his breathing controlled. He could hear the raiders sniffing the air, stepping over debris. checking corners. One of them muttered something angry. The second responded with a laugh. Dark and cruel, Ryan felt his jaw clench. Raiders like these enjoyed hurting others. He could imagine what they would do if they found Leary and Myra. The first raider's footsteps stopped again. Ryan could see the tip of his boot from behind the beam. One more step. Leary's grip tightened. Ryan raised the tool knife slightly. Then a loud metal crash echoed from far down the corridor. A heavy pipe had fallen somewhere in the station. Dust shook from the ceiling. The raiders cursed loudly. Ryan guessed what happened immediately. The unstable ceiling had shifted with the cold wind. A lucky accident. The raiders rushed toward the noise, thinking someone had caused it. Their footsteps faded into the distance. Ryan exhaled slowly. Leary almost collapsed from relief, her small body trembling. He turned to her. "We move now," he whispered. Leary nodded quickly, wiping her tears. Ryan pulled Mira's board again, faster this time but still quiet. They moved through the hall like shadows, slipping between broken lights and ruined walls. Every sound in the station felt louder now. Every loose stone, every drop of water felt like a risk. But Ryan kept going. He knew the raiders would check this area again after they realized the crash was nothing. They had to be gone before that happened. At the next corridor, Ryan stopped. Two paths lay ahead. One led to the open transport yard, the other to the cargo storage tunnels. The yard was dangerous. Too open, too bright, but the tunnels, dark, cold, cramped, but safer. Ryan chose the tunnels. He guided Mira's board down a sloping metal ramp. The air inside smelled of rust and damp earth. The tunnel was narrow, so narrow that his shoulders touched the sides. Leary walked close behind him, holding onto the board so her mother wouldn't slide. The deeper they went, the colder it became. Their breaths turned white in the dim light. Then Mira coughed again. It was soft. But in the tunnel, the sound echoed far. Ryan froze. Leary covered her mother's mouth quickly, tears filling her eyes again. Mira looked at her daughter with apology and sorrow. Voices rose in the distance, raiders shouting, reacting. They heard it. "They come," Leary whispered, her voice breaking. Ryan looked ahead. There was no time for careful movement now. He tightened his grip on the sliding board and pulled with everything he had. "Hold on," he told Leary. The tunnel curved sharply. At the end, faint light flickered, an exit leading to an old service yard outside the station. Freedom, or another trap. Behind them, the raiders' angry voices grew closer. Ryan pulled harder, his muscles burning. Mira's board scraped the ground. Leary stumbled but kept going. One more turn. One more push. And then they reached the exit. Cold night air rushed over them, but Ryan's hope fell instantly. Because outside, standing near the broken fence of the service yard, were two more raiders guarding the path. Leary gasped. Mira tried to rise but couldn't. Ryan's heart dropped. They were surrounded, and there was nowhere left to hide. Ryan froze the moment he saw the two raiders standing outside the tunnel exit. They were tall, armored, and carried long metal weapons that hummed with energy. Their eyes glowed faintly in the darkness, scanning the area with boredom like guards who thought no one would dare to escape. Leary gasped softly and pressed close to her mother. Mira tried to lift her head, but she had no strength left. Her breathing had become slower, weaker. Every second counted. Ryan pulled the sliding board back a little, trying to disappear into the shadows of the tunnel before the guards noticed movement. But the board scraped against a rock. Just lightly, the sound echoed. One guard's head snapped toward the tunnel. Ryan's heart dropped. He held his breath. Leary covered her mouth with both hands. Mira stared helplessly. The raider took a step forward. Another step. He lifted his weapon. Ryan knew he only had seconds before they were discovered. He whispered to Leary, barely moving his lips, "Do not move." She nodded, Though fear made her eyes shine like glass. Ryan slowly stepped forward, pulling out his tool knife. It was small, almost useless against armored raiders, but he tightened his grip anyway. He knew he couldn't fight both. He couldn't even fight one properly, but he could buy time. Time was all he needed. The raider came closer to the tunnel opening, raising his weapon to shine a narrow light inside. Ryan pressed himself to the wall, staying hidden from the beam. His heart thumped so loudly he feared they all could hear it. The beam of light slid across the walls, across the dust, across the floor, and then slid over the corner where Myra's blanket stuck out. Ryan had no choice. He grabbed the loose metal pipe from the ground and hurled it as far as he could down the tunnel behind him. It hit the wall with a loud metallic bang. Both guards whipped their heads toward the noise. What was that? One shouted, "Something running." The other growled. Ryan pushed Leary gently. "Stay low," he whispered. Then he stepped out of the shadows and ran in the opposite direction of the noise, stomping hard to make more loud echoes. He wanted the guards to think he was fleeing toward the far side of the station. The guards growled and chased the noise immediately. Their heavy boots thundered like drums on the metal ground. Ryan sprinted deeper into the yard, heart racing, lungs burning. He knew Leary and Mira could move only when the guards were far enough away. He turned sharply around a corner and crouched behind a broken transport crate. The guards came running past, cursing loudly. They went this way. Catch them before the others arrive. Ryan watched them disappear into another building. He leaned back, breathing hard. His legs shook from fear and exhaustion. But there was no time to rest. He scrambled back toward the tunnel as fast as he could. Leary was still there, holding Mira's hand tightly, eyes wide with fear. When she saw Ryan return, she almost cried in relief. "You come back," she whispered. Double quotes always, Ryan said softly. He grabbed the sliding board again. "We must move fast. More raiders will come." Leary nodded quickly and stood behind the board, ready to help push. Ryan pulled, Leary guided, and together they moved Mira out of the tunnel and into the cold open yard. The night sky above them was filled with stars, but the beauty meant nothing now. Danger hunted them from every shadow. Ryan scanned the area. To the left, the fuel tanks and busted engines. Two open. To the right, old cargo containers stacked high. Better. More cover. This way, he whispered. He led them toward the containers, moving quickly but silently. Leary tried her best not to cry each time Mira coughed. Every cough felt loud enough to bring raiders running. Again, then they heard shouting in the distance. More raiders responding to the first two who had chased Ryan's. Distraction. They were coming back. Ryan's pulse quickened. "Faster," he whispered. They reached the cargo containers. They were old, rusted, and half buried in dust. But they created a maze of shadows where they could hide. Ryan pulled Mira's board behind a large container and finally allowed himself a breath. Leary looked up at him, eyes hopeful. "Safe," she whispered. Ryan didn't want to lie. "Not yet," he said quietly. "But almost." Leary held Mira's hand tighter, whispering soft words in her language. Mira's eyes fluttered weakly. She was fading. Ryan knew he had minutes at best, maybe less, before she collapsed completely. He reached into his bag and pulled out a small emergency flare. It was risky. If he used it, the raiders might see it before anyone else. But if he didn't use it, Mira would die here. Ryan stared at the flare, his hand trembling. Then he made a decision. He lifted it toward the sky. Leary watched him with fear and hope fighting in her eyes. Ryan whispered, "Help is coming." Then he lit the flare. A bright orange light shot upward, glowing strong against the dark sky. The raiders roared in anger in the distance, but far away, beyond the hills, a human patrol ship shifted direction. It was heading toward them. Hope and danger, both racing toward the same place. The flare burned bright in the night sky, its orange light spreading across the broken yard like fire on metal. Ryan's heart beat hard in his chest as he lowered the flare stick, its glow fading slowly around his hand. Leary stared at the bright trail in the sky with wide, fearful eyes. Humans. Come, she whispered. Ryan nodded. Yes, they will see it. But he did not say the second part out loud. The raiders will see it too. Shouts rose across the yard, angry, fast, closer than before. Leary flinched and wrapped her arms around her mother. Mayra's breathing grew weaker, her chest rising only slightly with every breath. She had almost nothing left. Ryan crouched beside them. Stay behind me, he said, though he already knew Leary would not leave her mother's side for anything. The first raider appeared at the far end of the yard. His armor glimmered under the flare light. He shouted something loud to the others. Soon more boots thundered behind him, heavy, loud, furious. They were coming from every direction now. Ryan rose to his feet, gripping his tool knife. It felt small in his hand, pathetic, but he tightened his grip anyway. He had no shield, no armor, no real weapon, but he had Leary and Mira behind him. And that was enough to make him stand tall. Leary watched him with shaking eyes. She whispered something in her language, maybe a prayer, maybe a goodbye. Ryan stepped forward. The raider leader approached first, tall and broad, his helmet shaped like a skull. His voice was deep and cruel as he laughed. Human, he growled. Give them to us, and maybe we let you live. Ryan didn't move. He didn't speak. He just stepped slightly to the side so his body fully blocked Leary and Mira. The raider leader laughed louder. You protect them? They are nothing, weak, sick. Ryan's jaw tightened. They're under my protection now. The raider's smile vanished. He raised his weapon. Then you die first. Before the raider could strike, a loud roar erupted across the sky like thunder, tearing open the stars. A bright white searchlight flashed down from above, blinding everyone. A human patrol ship broke through the clouds, engines glowing bright blue. Ryan almost collapsed with relief. Liri gasped, covering her mouth. Human, home, she whispered. The raiders cursed and lifted their weapons, firing beams of energy at the ship. But the ship's shields glowed and absorbed every shot. In seconds, the patrol ship opened its side panel. 3 armored human soldiers jumped out, landing on the ground with practice speed. Their weapons were advanced, humming with blue power. Identify yourself. One shouted at Ryan. Ryan Hawley, he said quickly. Civilian engineer. 2 survivors with me injured, unarmed. Understood. The soldier replied. The raiders turned toward the humans, ready to fight, but they were too slow. The human soldiers were trained for this. Energy blasts lit the yard as humans pushed forward, forcing the raiders back step by step. One raider charged at Ryan from the side, hoping to grab Leary. Ryan acted on instinct. He swung his tool knife upward, slicing the raider's hand. The raider screamed, giving Ryan enough time to tackle him away from the girls. Leary held Mira tightly, trembling but quiet. She did not scream. She did not run. She trusted Ryan. In minutes, the human soldiers overpowered the raiders. Some raiders dropped their weapons and fled. Others fell unconscious on the ground. The leader tried to escape toward the fence, but a soldier fired a stun net, trapping him instantly. The yard went quiet again, this time with safety, not fear. A human medic rushed to Mira immediately. She bent down beside her, scanning her with a small handheld device. Her eyes widened. She's critical, the medic said. We need to get her inside the ship now. Leary climbed onto the board as the medic and Ryan lifted Mira carefully. The girl refused to let go of her mother's hand. She looked at Ryan, eyes filled with gratitude and fear. You help us, she whispered. Always, Ryan said softly. You're safe now. The medic nodded to Ryan. You saved their lives. Without the flare, we wouldn't have found you. Ryan looked at Leary. She was staring at him with a look he would never forget: trust, hope, and something deeper. A belief that not all beings in the universe were cruel. As the ship lifted off, carrying them away from the ruined station, Mira opened her eyes for a brief moment. She looked at Ryan, her lips trembling. Thank you, she whispered. Leary squeezed her mother's hand and leaned against Ryan's arm. The stars outside the window shone brighter than before. For the first time, Leary felt safe. For the first time, Mira had hope. And Ryan realized something quietly inside himself. Sometimes, the smallest act of kindness from a human could change an entire world. The little girl who once stole his food had now found a home with the humans who saved her.